Okay, hi everybody. I'm Emily. So we've had some last minute changes and cancellations. Ruth unfortunately injured herself. Ruth Kinna won't be able to join us today. And Rachel had some personal issues crop up at the last minute. So it's just going to be myself and Catalina and Sonia. But I think we are going to have a really interesting discussion, especially with Catalina being in Colombia. So without any further ado, I will ask Sonia to introduce herself and then Catalina.
Hello, I'm Sonia. I'm from Valencia. At the moment, I'm based in London. And I started Gata Negra collective. We started as part of do-it-yourself culture. And later, a few of the writers like Emily, Rachel, we start to publish the Gata Negra zine. At the moment, we have 2 issues. And the first one was Why A.C.A.B, and it's the zine that we start to think to do this discussion about abolishing police. And I think that's it.
Hi, I am Catalina Rincon. I'm based in Colombia. I'm from Colombia as well. I have 12 years of experience working on the defense of the right to physical and mental health, but I have been also participating in several collectives since I was in the university, collaborating through art and cultural expressions of resistance and autonomous proposals created to in face of the context we have grown up. Colombia has been a country own war for all its history. So as young people and students, we have been organizing ourselves for years in response to these criminal governments that we have had. So it has been a very interesting experience to find how through the art and culture, we can also resist.
Great, thank you so much. I'm Emily. I live in southwestern Montana. I've been collaborating with Gata Negra, and I also am an IWW delegate and organizer, and have been working on community mutual aid projects during the pandemic. Really thrilled to get a chance to host a discussion, even though we've had some last minute shakeups here. So I think Catalina, I think that you have some really interesting things that you can talk about with regard to police and state violence in Colombia right now.
Yes, definitely. We sadly have many things to share with you. I really appreciate this space because we are trying to take advantage of all these international solidarity and international voices where we can spread the message of what is happening here. Probably you have seen on the news what is that is happening, a massacre right now in the streets of many of the main cities of the country. This is not new, but the change has been that the war has displaced from the fields, from the Colombian countryside to the main cities in a situation that we didn't live before. So we had this war in the countryside for years and years, but now you have the bodies on the door of your house practically. So this is dramatic. And I can say that is not just police brutality, because that is the expression, but is systematic violence and is state brutality as we consider here. And the demand is for a change of government. I will tell you before about what anarchist components has the resistance here. And we don't trust in any government. We cannot. But we definitely think that we need a change of model of government, because this is not a good one, and this is not what we need and what we want. All this conflict is based in my from my point of view, in the inequity system that we have. Here, the inequality is dramatic. Some people have a lot. Most of these people has get this wellness through corruption, through drug trafficking, through displacing and oppressing whole communities. And at the same time, there are millions of people who have absolutely nothing. So there is no good public education system. When the young people can go to the basic school, but they don't have any possibility to go to medium and high school. So they have been forced to join legal and illegal armed groups for years. And this is because the lack of opportunity. So many of these young people are in the police forces, in the military forces, because of the lack of opportunities. It's estimated that nowadays more than 40% of the people lives on a poverty situation. And of this group, 20% of the people lives under extreme poverty. This means that many families in the country can eat once a day. So this is the perfect caldo de cultivo. Sorry, I don't know the word. Spreading
Pool, isn't it?
Breeding ground. Sorry. Is the perfect context for being in a permanent war. So people who has not anything for eating, any hope, any expectation for their lives. So the young people is really tired of this situation, and that's why they went out 1 month ago, or we went out 1 month ago, to reclaim the streets and to reclaim an answer from the government to this situation. And the answer has been one that we could expect before. So the answer has been shooting, torture, repression. The state armed forces have been ordered to shoot and defend the private property and the interest and the well-being of the classes. So they have been ordered to shoot or to do anything at any cost to replace the order in the countries. And this is a mixture of legal and illegal forces that are also under the control of the government. So when we talk about paramilitaries, it's the same people, because it's also financed and supported by the militaries, by the government classes. So now there are people in big cars shooting, and nobody is judging them or persiguiéndolos. Nobody's investigating, and nobody's doing anything in 1 month because they follow the same orders. So our civilians with arms and with the right and the permission to kill young protesters on the streets. So we have nowadays more than 70 people has been killed in the last month. But I'm talking just about this period of time that is like the fire. But this is a systematic methodology from the government. And 10 years ago, we could talk about extrajudicial executions, false positives, that is not the right term, but is the common term, the false positives, that were also young people killed by the army, and showing as guerrilla people killed in combat. So today we have also more than 200 of dismissed people. So it's really chaotic, dramatic, and terrible what is going on. And are all the state forces involved in this situation.
Thank you so much for the kind of introduction and context, and helping us understand the scope of what's happening day by day. I think one question certainly that I would have with regards to the situation there is, do you feel like there's an international support component for what the state is doing, that there's that they're getting assistance with cracking down on these protests from outside of Colombia right now?
Well, we can see the common rejection in international terms. International governments, human rights organizations, independent organizations are rejecting this situation. We can feel it. There have been massive demonstrations in the main cities, in front of the parliament, in London, in Barcelona, in Buenos Aires, in Berlin, in Paris. So this has been very important and supportive as answer, and that we can feel here, and we really appreciate. That is in general and the most public and evident terms, but there are also a lot of collaboration, and our call for support is also to the direct support that the organizations that have the technology, the informatics, knowledge and abilities and capacities can also help us, and or are also helping us to protect our information, like to be more strategic on our resistance actions. That is also a very helpful and important aid that we can get here. Unfortunately, the government closed the doors for international missions of human rights organizations because they said that all was covered by the local entities and institutions, but that was terrible because all are in the same position. All the people in all the key institutions are the same. So they are not investigating and they are not denouncing enough. So we really need the international eyes here and reports and work on the territories. And last week, the international relations minister, the canciller, had to accept the visit of some international commissions of human rights. So one arrived last week. I think all of the members are from South America. One of them was rejected to enter to the country. He couldn't do migration process, and he was rejected, and he had to travel back to Buenos Aires. But now these missions are starting to come in here, and they are verifying what is happening. So we are also it gives us some confidence that nowadays everything is being documented. So it's not like when Álvaro Uribe was the real president. He is now the real president, but through the puppet that is called Iván Duque. But when he was the elected president, and more than 6,000 young people were dismissed and their bodies were found, nobody had Facebook Live or these kind of tools that now we can be sharing with the world. So what is happening here is not just in our inside our borders now. Now this has gone out of our territory, our borders, and many international groups are helping us to replicate and to reject what is going on.
Thank you. I think also, do you feel like there is that when people are out on the streets, I know from what you'd said, it seems like this is more enduring, and it's got a different feeling to it from things that have happened in the last 10 or so years. Do you feel like there's more of a feminist component to part of this that has built up, and more of a, specifically, rather than that kind of feminist where it's like, oh, we want these violent people to be disappeared into prisons? There's more of a liberatory anarcha-feminist kind of spirit to things.
Well, the women, we have been direct victims of the systematic brutality of the state for years. The crimes committed by legal and illegal armed force have been affecting women in Colombia for years. Women's bodies have been converted or used as spoils of war. So the answer has been also very important since from the women organization. So they have been many women resisting by themselves, but also organizing as groups historically here. Since from the 90s, probably many of these feminist movement and groups have emerged. But in the last year, but not with just a feminist or point of view, but also as an organic response to these kind of situations. So the strategies of resistance, the denunciation, the self-determination, the solidarity among women has been a practice in the last years and historically in Colombia. But in the last 10 years where the feminism as methodology as well, or I don't know how to say it in English, but the feminism groups, radical feminists have been also been emerging in a very interesting and important way to respond to this kind of systematic violences. So we can say that today, let me show you some figures. More than 22 victims of sexual assault by the public force have been just in the last month. But if this has happened in 1 month, you can imagine when this is a systematic practice, what does it mean in 50 years or 60 years of conflict though. So we have been directly impacted and affected by these practices, and is very important to see the answer of many feminist collectives that they are going out to the streets, that through the art, through the human rights defense. So many women, lawyers, social workers from many areas of the knowledge have been joined together to respond. So is definitely the feminist answer and movement is strong here, and they are working very hard in the Black communities, in the indigenous communities, in the universities, students. So from many sectors, we have been organizing ourselves.
Thank you so much. It looks like we've got a couple questions from viewers. So Connie asked, have there been any gains from the national strike, and are there negotiations to defund the police?
Well, the society here is absolutely fragmented. We are absolutely polarized. So there are many people defending the institutions and the government and asking for a strong hand answer, and the president needs to be more rude and more radical. And this is one like group of this in the society here is still going on. People still think that the police defend anything, but most of the people, most of the population here is rejecting these actions from the police, so more than before. So that is important to see that more people is rejecting this systematic use of force and abuses, because is the now a bigger movement asking for the abolition of the abolition of SMAT, because we have a anti-riot squad that is the most violent, and they are like RoboCops. I will share the screen. Can you please tell me if you can see my screen?
Yep, I can see it. Hopefully everybody else can see it.
So this anti-riot squad was conformed in 1999. In these years, they have more officially more than 90 people in the context of riots. Many more are not like have a direct implication, but there are more. And the impunity rate is more than 95%. So nobody is being judged for these murders, and the impunity is terrible. So we have been asking for years the abolition of this anti-riot force, and not the abolition of the police, because I think that it's a big dream, but the reform of the police. So we consider that this institution definitely needs to be reformed, but not a soft reform, but a real and high reform. So that's the main demand nowadays on the street, because the people on the street has won the abolition of the financial reform, of the healthcare system reform, but the main demand, yes, that's a win, that were two big wins, but the big win will be these two: abolition of A.C.A.B, of anti-riot squad, and police reform.
Thank you. And the second question, do you see what's happening in Colombia now as continuous with recent social revolt in Chile, Ecuador, and etc.?
Yes. Latin America and South America, we have many struggles and many common problematics, and the young people is in all these countries is the one who is going out to the street to demand real changes. So in 2019, when in Chile was the big revolution, it was very inspirational here, and we went at the same time to the streets as well, but not very organized as the Chilean young people were. So they were very persistent and they had also a very well-structured methodologies for demanding and for acting, and they resist on the street for more than 1 month. So that was the situation that obliged to Piñera president to call for the new constitutional committee and the reform of the constitution, and they really got what they were demanding on the street. But in my opinion, it's a difference between Piñera, when he's not a good person, of course, but he's not a criminal or a murderer in the terms that our former president Álvaro Uribe is. He hasn't any limit, and he has shown us that he doesn't care that the international community and that everybody knows that he is a paramilitary. He has been founding and creating paramilitary groups for years, and he doesn't care. And the impunity with him is also like support or something that gives him confidence that he can do anything. And 25 years later, nothing happens. So this corrupted and justice system is promoting this situation now. So we have our own particularities as country that reinforce this situation. So, but yes, the people in Ecuador, in Peru, that has tumbado presidentes, that has put out of government presidents historically, this has not happened here. We have been the president who starts a period, he finishes, no matter what he does. So the particularities are also important to be analyzed here.
Great, thank you so much. I think coming out of that, the answers to those questions and what you had mentioned earlier, that there's been a widespread justified distrust of the state and state mechanisms. Do you feel like on the streets people are starting to think about justice in a different way than through court systems and through these state structures, that they're thinking about like different kinds of justice and different ways that can happen in a community?
Yes, sadly here there is like a common practice of take the justice on your own hand, on your own hands, and that is being also very risky, because that's the way many of these paramilitary groups appeared, because they were formed to make justice by their own hands against the guerrilla. So I think that is also to be very careful with this kind of situations, because this doesn't help to the main problem. So one of the internal people organizations that are happening now and that we think are the most the right way is the local assemblies, like little groups of people discussing about the main causes and roots of the problems, because the roots here are very, very deep, and we need to work on these roots, because we see the manifestation or the point of the iceberg, but it's not that we need to resolve. We need to go to the roots. So these assemblies are talking and discussing about these situations and the roots of the problems, and they are proposing some kind of action plans or things that may happen. So our confidence nowadays is more on these local conversations that are happening, and if these grow up, they can now we can talk about leaders or representatives of these little assemblies, and they would be the right people to be sit down in the negotiation tables, because right now the negotiation committee of the national strike doesn't represent the young people on the street, because in the last month they invited to some of the students leaders, but they don't represent most of the young people that is on the street, and they has not the access to the university, so they are not represented by student leaders.
So great. So do you feel like there's kind of a period, along with everything that's happening, that there's kind of some spontaneous organizing to, like you were saying, like local assemblies in a more horizontal way in communities, and trying to form cross connections in a more horizontal way?
Yes. These young people has understood that it's not a vertical and hierarchical way of government, because they have been, or we have been, never represented by the traditional politician classes and parties and everything. So we don't trust on them. And this is one of the main anarchist concept or elements in this struggle, and is that we don't trust on them. So even when there are also left movements or parties, they are closer to us, but we have seen also how these people changes when they are in the power, and that they are following their own interest, and they are also representing interest of some economies or some power people in the power groups. So we think that this is not the main way. So we think that is in the horizontal organizations and conversation and negotiation tables where we can really build a different proposal.
Thank you so much. It looks like we have a question for Sonia about Gata Negra is based in DIY culture. What lessons and takeaways from the pandemic for DIY culture?
You are in mute.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay, now? Yeah, as I said, we started Gata Negra when it's the first month of COVID. So we started as a section in do-it-yourself culture in the magazine. So we started to organize, we were doing 4 pages, and like it was going on right. Finally, we got independent, and at the moment we have 2 issues. So, yeah, I mean, could you repeat the question?
Sure. So the question was lessons and takeaways from the pandemic for do-it-yourself culture.
Okay. Yes, what I would like to say is like have been really good for all of us having this time off on the COVID pandemic. You know, obviously it's a bad thing, but we could organize ourselves. We had this have been now a year and a month since we started Gata Negra, and at the moment we have been all online, but we are changing and we start to trying to have some events, you know, like here in London. We want to do some stuff in Valencia too. But I would say to people, try to get involved, you know, with feminist groups, and I don't know.
I do feel like, you know, certainly like with my experience, because I had written a little bit for DIY culture and then started working with you with Gata Negra, I feel like the pandemic has, because everybody having to connect online in a different way or in a more intense way, like I feel like there's kind of been an upsurge in internationalism that's been really interesting and eye-opening and enriching. I mean, so with starting Gata Negra and kind of getting all of these different collaborators from all over the world, what have been some of the challenges with that?
Well, for me, it has been really good because I was speaking also with the other Sonia that is in Norway. So it's something that we noticed for the last years that was difficult for us to engage on our political movements, you know, because when you're an immigrant, it's kind of difficult to get used to what is going on. So I think that these have been good for people that we feel isolated. So suddenly people start to write to me, people that feel in the same situation, like, you know, in United States, or I met Catalina here in London, for example. But also I think that what is happening in Colombia, lots of Latin people is getting together. You know, just yesterday I had a meeting in a new group here that is called Latinx, that it's organizing to send funds to Colombia to do actions, to do things. So I think that this pandemic has been bad in some ways, but we are getting more organized. I have that feeling. And also we are getting organized in an international way, because we have been at home, we only have online. You know, before I come from more like neighborhood politics. And this is the first time that I had to get in online, you know, and get along with other people. So in that way, have been really good. And I'm surprised that people contact me, you know, it's people that is not connected between themselves that it's getting, and also people that wasn't related with anarcha-feminism, but they come more from radical feminism, and suddenly they have been reading a lot and they said, I want to collaborate, even though that they are not pure anarchists, you know. So I think that one part of the working class feminists have been reading a lot these months, and have been good in that way. I mean, if this, it would not be possible if, for example, I didn't have been, when I started the COVID, I lost my job. Finally, I was furloughed. But if not, it would be completely impossible. You cannot do this kind of things if you are working shift of 12 hours in a restaurant. It's impossible. So, but at the same time, I think that it's important now that we come back to our jobs and we demand to have small, you know, shift. We cannot work so many hours. We need to try to keep this that we have this time on, you know, on the normal life again. So I think that in that way have been good. I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that they're part of as things start to reopen, I know over here in the United States, there's been a lot of upset in service industries and things like that because people want a living wage and they want their time. They don't want to be working these ridiculous shifts. And it definitely feels like, as bad as it's been with the pandemic, that there's kind of been an opening for people that would not have been willing to think about, read about and think about feminism, think about anarchism in a different way, and obviously, like, we've seen an upswell of action on the streets as well. And I think one of the things that I've been interested in with this internationalism, or kind of a renewal of international solidarity, is thinking about how we're going to strike that balance with each other to keep creating and collaborating the way that we have been, and also going back into face-to-face interactions. And I know you said you were interested in starting, you were getting connected with some of the more local feminist groups.
Yeah, the thing is, like, things like I went to the Colombia demonstration and also May Day. There was plenty of Latin people, Latin American also unions, like, so I could speak with them there, and they are getting together, just doing like, we are preparing like coffee mornings for just women here in London once per month. But we are trying to make like a Latin group, because also is what I spoke before. We feel like an immigrant, it's difficult to get along, So, for example, we want to do things that it's just for, that we can speak Spanish and get involved together. So yeah, I think that each person have to find their way to the balance that you said. I want to keep doing stuff online. I want to keep doing Gata Negra. We are going to prepare a third magazine now, third number. But at the same time, I think that each person have to find a way to also bring this, as Catalina was saying, on the neighborhoods and on the small communities and assemblies, because we cannot do it just online. Also we see things like May Day, looks like lots of people is going to go on Facebook, and later you go and it's not that much. So it's important to work and keep that balance, and each person finding their way to keep both things. Yeah.
I think that, talking about Gata Negra, I think, Catalina, do you feel like there's been a component to what's been happening in the streets of people starting to read and really bring these ideas out of the university and start thinking about them in a direct and practical way?
Well, I honestly think that these full of rage young people on the street has not access to this kind of information. They are nowadays being more in contact with some platforms with this kind of information, but not before. Well, or not in a very academic way, but when you see many of them are rappers, for example, or punk young guys, and it's through the music, I think these messages of resistance or unfairness on rage and these kind of things are coming to them. So music is definitely one of these manifestations, tools that are very important. And I can saw 2 weeks ago in the main point in Bogota of resistance that is called, it was called Portal Americas, and now it's called Portal of Resistance, because we are renaming also many points and many like locations in the main cities that are in very colonialist, very patriarchist names, and we are changing them. So in this point, you saw many of the guys that you can find we don't have metro here or subway, but we have buses. And you see, when you take a bus, you see many young people who comes to sing and that's the way they survive. and they have many politic lyrics, and they write very politic lyrics as well. So that's one of the sources we have to reach them. And we saw in this portal, in this point, in this station, one of the most street rap groups that has very consciousness and politic lyrics, and people gets crazy when they arrive and they sing. So more than text and academic things, I think that's a good way for reaching them.
Thank you. So Dave Downs has a question for Sonia. Do you think the pandemic has given more power to the police in Valencia or Spain, where the lockdown was strictly implemented?
Well, with what we have seen in Spain is like in Valencia and also places like Madrid, Barcelona, there are plenty of social centers, and they have been tried to be closed by the police during the pandemic. So people was really angry and was really frustrating because we are supposed to stay at home. In Spain, you couldn't go even shopping, just once per day, that's it, not exercise. So we are supposed to be locked. And at the same time, the police was using that to take the social center and try to close them down. And for example, in Madrid, they could do it, but in Valencia, there was a response from all the neighbors in the CCO Lorta. And just in an hour, like neighbors go there and could save the place. So I think that in Valencia and everywhere it's been a really important thing. Police is trying to protect against squatting, and in Spain people have lost their jobs. It's really difficult to pay the rent. The benefits are not good, so people is struggling, and the police, I think, and the government are going to try to protect that over everything. It's the same that lots of people in Spain was trying to ask to have the cancelled rent. We were trying to make like a rent strike, and that was put down. So I think that defend, for example, the social centers, it's a really important thing at the moment, and the police it's trying to take them. Then it's been one of the big fights. And on the other side, in Spain, we are having the problem like the right parties are having more power each time. And then there are demonstrations from the right wings, even Nazi people. In Valencia, there was a few Nazi demonstrations, violent ones, in the neighborhoods that these social centers are. And the police don't appear there. When there is a riot, they are not there. And people start to think like, maybe they are the same people, So that is the main problem, because in Spain police, we had a dictator for many years, and the dictator just died on the bed. There wasn't a revolt against. So institutions like the police, justice, they just transfer. So we have a military police that it's from the right, and that didn't change. So that is the main problem in Spain, is like the transition was made for the people on power, and the people of power was close to Franco dictatorship. So I think that the problem that we have is that in Spain police, it's classes, So I think that at the moment, the biggest struggle is to keep the social center open, even though that we have to respect the lockdown.
Thank you. And we have a question from Anderson. Any plans for the next zines?
Well, I was speaking with Sonia Muñoz, with Rachel Radic, and we were thinking and made another one, but also we were interested in publish small scenes about just we are open to projects. Like we have one of the Gata Negra that it's Mireia Redondo. She write about emotional self-defense. And there is other people like Micaela Maisa also that she wrote about male gaze. So we were interested to do also scenes about particular projects of people. So we are open. If you are interested, please send it to the email. But also we were thinking to make like 4 big scenes per year, spring, winter, and everyone on Gata Negra can collaborate on it. But also on the side, if you have a project, just write to us. And also we are start to collaborate with a group that is anarchist-pedagogists. that we are going to do material for teachers, for also teaching in an anarchist way. Yeah.
That I'm really excited for what comes next. It's been amazing working with you guys. I think going back kind of to what your answer to Dave's question about police taking more power during lockdowns. I mean, I think that's kind of been the worldwide experience, is that the pandemic has been an excuse for a lot of repression and state, clamping down on some really hard-won freedoms. I know even over here in the United States where I'm at, I mean, even locally where I'm at, there was a huge breakdown in local government because when our state governor signed a mask mandate, the police here just refused to follow it. And they basically just declared themselves exempt from, that what had been signed into law. And it certainly, lays bare that they're a fundamentally reactionary force wherever in the world you are, and that they don't consider themselves, at all part of the working class or part of the communities that they're policing. I think there's a continuum that, I mean, like just trying to keep up on the news and watching everything that's going on. Do you feel like, for either Sonia or Catalina, do you feel like more people who are just who are not specifically anarchist or not specifically leftist, do you feel like there is more of a sense of like seeing that there is a continuum in this whole, global capitalist state system, that we're all getting, similar kinds of violence on different severity or different scales and in different ways depending on race and things like that? But do you feel like wherever you're at, that more people that you might not necessarily expect seem to be like awakening to this problem?
Well, I think that people have felt for sure more control. In Spain, for example, they put the law that they can trace all the phones to see what was going on and control how people was respecting on all the lockdown. So I think that, here in London, in UK, for example, they are doing the law, Kill the Bill, all the movement that it's around that. I think that they are using this time to make laws that control us more, and people it's feeling that. And also, I don't support the anti-vaccine, anti-lockdown thing, but at the same time, I could understand that the working class people is feeling that they don't have power over themselves. And also, I think that people have feel politics things that before they feel personal. And I think is the big thing on anarchism, no, and feminism also is the two big things to learn, because in Spain at least flats are really tiny. Most of them don't have balcony, don't have gardens, so people have been really aware of the position that they are. So, and they are not happy about it. For the first time, it's you don't have escape. You cannot go with your friends and drink something. You have to stay in your flat. You have to live with your precarity, And I think that have made people feel angry and they didn't like it. And also they feel like that, like government put all the laws and you couldn't go out from there. So I think that have been really clear that on people's lives, yeah.
Great, thank you. I know, Catalina, you kind of talked about, that there's this movement that's going on in Colombia right now is kind of a reflection of that. Do you also feel like there are more groups that you haven't previously seen getting engaged the way that they're getting engaged right now?
Yes, people is understanding that politics doesn't happen only when you go and vote. That have a political position is a daily thing, is a daily decision as well. When you consume anything, you have to think what are you sponsoring through your consumptions. So people is more realizing and getting aware and involved about it. and this last year has been also very special on the context we have, and there are no social plans and social response for the pandemic. So people is also tired about that, and I have seen how many people that was more supportive with the right governments now are asking, but what are they giving to us? So for me, it was crazy to see, because I can understand the people in power, the ultra rich people and the privileged people in the right. But for me, it was crazy to see vulnerable and the low income people also defending these kind of governments. And they have been doing a great work, like causing fear on people about Venezuela situation. Our neighbor is Venezuela. They have this communist or Chavez and Maduro situation. And now we are full of people from Venezuela. Is the main migration that we have. Colombia is not an immigrant country, it's internal migration, but not external migration country, receiving country. So now this fear of the communists, this shadow of the communism in Colombia put the current president on the government. So they are still talking about it, and you can see the methods of the ultra right that are still talking, oh, be careful of the communism. So but and people was very involved on that thinking. But now I have seen old people, for example, that was supportive with the military forces and the traditional and the conservative ways, but now they are starting to reject what is happening now, because they said they don't have the right to shoot, and they cannot answer to a stone with a gun. So I have seen more people on the streets with the klaxons when we are in the demonstrations, more involved than even before.
Thank you. Definitely want to kind of open up the floor for questions from everybody who's watching. In the meantime, I definitely am curious about what kinds of mutual aid projects are happening kind of in support, in material support of staying on the streets in Colombia right now, and if there's ways that people around the world that we can materially support your struggle.
Thank you very much. It's a very important question. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to travel to UK, to London, and I was there for some months, and I went out to many demonstrations on the street. And I thought at the end of these months were what is happening here, what is going to the countries and to the territories where that they are supporting, because I didn't find sometimes many connections between the demonstration there in front of the parliament and the situation here. So that's a big question. How can in the North global countries support the local actions? So one is to continue giving visibility to the things that's important. But as I told you before, the direct aid is also needed. So here the people on the street needs first aid kits, for example, for the high moments or situations. Every night there are battles on the streets, so there are many people with injuries that need first aid support. So that's one thing. So the protection elements as well, the hats, the escudos, I don't know how to say it, but basic protection elements are needed. Resources also for printing more materials, more booklets of self-defense. There are many contents already developed, but we don't have the weight sometimes for printing them, for example. The big murals and street paintings as well, for example. We are needing resources for materializing many things. We are doing it, but it's not easy. It's with our internal resources that we are doing, but we are starting to receive funds from international groups, anarchists, punk bands, and many people now is sending money for materializing this. And also about data safety, for example, that I know that in the North Global there are many experienced people with this kind of knowledge. So how to protect our information, our communications, how to document in the right way, because many of these Facebook videos has not the metadata that needed to be considered as an evidence. So we are starting to receive this kind of advice on how to convert them in real evidence. So all these kind of collaborations are very well appreciated and needed.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any like specific organizations that you can think of that would be good to send, mutual aid donations, things like that, that we could list for people?
Yes. For example, Rap Trap is an anarchist and punk young movement of guys here in Bogota. They are receiving the Black community process in the Cauca, because it's not just the situation here in Bogota. I don't want to be capital centralized point of view, but also in the territories there are their own organizations. In Cali, that is the main point of resistance. In Siloé, there are also first line groups that are organizing themselves. So if you have any way to spread the information or some links that I can share to you, I can send this information to Sonia. Please, Sonia,
yeah.
I ask you for help. And if we find the way in Gata Negra,
we can put it on the website. Yeah, we can put it on the website and the Facebook.
Thank you very much. And I can build a kind of directory of organization that we can confident on them, because that's also about confidence, because many resources sometimes comes to the wrong NGO or something like that. I don't trust on NGOs. I trust more on collectives and horizontal organizations. But there are some people that is doing great work with this kind of help.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I would love it if we could get a directory that I could share around to, places, collectives and artists and things to support. We have another question that looks like kind of for all of us in regards to mutual aid. I'm interested to hear everyone's thoughts on how we can resist acting in a charity/service provider model while the people we're supporting are in difficult financial situations that can only understandably take and not be able to support back. It looks like it continues charity model, not necessarily in the sense that we gatekeep or means test, but that it becomes a one-sided affair. I will just give my answer. I think mutual aid is not strictly transactional. I think that we can look at it as anarchists, the lessons that we learn and the connections that we make from these international struggles and the involvement and the support are essential to helping us succeed in our own local movements. That's just me. I see that as mutuality, even if it's not strictly a one-to-one kind of, I've sent you money, you send me money kind of thing. I think that there are so many things that we can take away for our own local struggles from being in contact and supporting international struggles. What Sonia or Catalina, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
I'm not sure if I understood all the sense of this question, but as I told before, I think on direct aid more than aid that goes through big organizations and NGOs, because we have seen how they don't use in the right way these kind of resources. So for me, the best way is to send them to the people who is needing it. And we can see many communitarian aids that are activating the collectives of young people as well. There are many communitarian pods in the points, and many of these young people on the street, they said that they are eating and feeding better on the street than they do in their own houses. So many of these people is still on the street 1 month later because they have better conditions, and it's crazy because at night they have been shooting and they are inhalating gases and everything, but they find better conditions than in their own houses. This is also bringing to the streets to their mothers, and it has been beautiful to see the first line of mothers that are going out to defend their sons and their daughters at night because they are afraid at home that the state kill them at night. So this kind of mutual aid and involvement also from people who was not involved never with these kind of situations. They thought that as I told, that the political life is going to vote and no more, and now they are realizing that they have an active role to be played also in the day-by-day life. So about this concept of charity, and is not the invitation to see it in that way, but is more the invitation to see it as mutual aid and solidarity, and we say that just the people save the people. No, we are not waiting that it happens in a different way.
Thank you. What are your thoughts, Sonia?
Well, I'm not a fan in the concept of charity. I don't support that. I think that it's more interesting to speak of solidarity, because when you're speaking of charity, it's not an horizontal relationship. So I think that it's important to change that to solidarity, because in that moment, what happened, for example, in Valencia, since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, lots of people lost the jobs, so start to build like mutual aid on the neighborhoods. Each neighborhood now have the network. And I think that that is solidarity, and I think that also it keep the network strong, because you know that if you need it in some point, it's going to be there. It's not also related to a necessity situation. If not, it's a long-term project, you know, because on charity means that someone needs that help. On solidarity, it's just a fluent thing that keep going in all situations. So I think that is more interesting thinking in that way when we are going to build like mutual aid groups.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this question is kind of directed towards like people in the global north, people in the United States, and you know, that a lot of us are lucky enough, fortunate enough to maybe have resources to be able to send money or otherwise send support that, you know, may not come back in that same form. But I do think that thinking in terms of solidarity is really important, and thinking in of mutual aid in terms of any kind of an exchange, not just a material exchange necessarily. So I think I wouldn't consider kind of trying to assist in international struggles a form of charity, unless it has that hierarchy to it. But you know, we're all members of the working class, and you know, your relative income, unless you are making it from extracting rents or from making a profit off of other people's labor, is you know, may go up and down in your lifetime. But it is about solidarity, and on an international level as well as a local level, I think, in my mind. And oh, we just got a new question. How has the Black Lives Matter protests affected your community's views on the police? Have your community's anti-police sentiments grown since then or died down? Has liberal identity politics hindered progress. And I guess that's for everybody. So Sonia or Catalina, if you want to take the floor.
Well, what happened 1 year ago with George Floyd also had an international repercussion, but we were surprised at how the people here were more touched by murder in United States, and I think all of us had to reject it, but how a mediatic thing caused more reactions on people than the local murders of Black people. So the police abuse and the state abuse is systematic here, and it has been affecting in a higher way to Black communities, indigenous communities, people who work in the field, campesinos, we call them here, women. So it's racist, is fascist, all these systematic practices. And in the same month, we had a murder of 3 young Black guys in Valle del Cauca. So we didn't see the reaction and the rejection of the Colombian people to these murders, and that was also call that we did. Okay, why do you feel it's a trendy thing? It's a social media thing to put your profile on Black when this is happening here every single day. So yes, it's important because it's a call to action and a call to reflection, global call to reflection, but I don't think that is something that changed anything, because 1 month later, nothing happened. The police brutality was still ongoing here and everywhere, and many things. So we said, these kind of awakes are not sustainable if they are not accompanied by real claims for the people. So we talk about, yes, police reform on that situation on that month, but nothing else in the next year. So for me, it also will have an impact if it's also a systematic ask from our side.
Thank you. How about you, Sonia?
Here is the same. Here in London, for example, we have the same situation. Like, people get more touched by murder in the United States that here in North London, for example, almost every single Black people someone in the family have been stabbed or something happened. And I think that it's the same that I was saying, Catalina. It's surprising because here happen every month and no one get surprised, no, you know, and I mean, no one on the media, you know. So yeah, it's really, it's upsetting because finally it happened like it's a trendy thing, you know. The America, it's have more importance than what is happening in the country. So I don't know why is it, but for sure it's the same, have the same situation. And I think that somehow people have normalized that it happened. I don't know.
I mean, I think the second part of the question too is kind of interesting. Do you feel like there's that where you are, that there's been a growth in kind of anti-police sentiment, especially with the Kill the Bill movement now, but kind of over time? Do you feel like even despite the kind of there was an upsurge in media coverage and then it kind of maybe died down in terms of like the Black Lives Matter movement, but do you feel like there has been some sustained momentum as far as people starting to really question the police locally where you are?
Well, I think that they don't have escape now, that this discussion is so big nowadays and is in the common ground that they cannot pretend to pass just on that. So they need to propose something, because it's clear that people is not expecting or is not pretending to go back without any win. So at least a conversation process or a promise has to be on the table if they want that this stop. And the anti-police feeling is growing up here, and it will continue because they cannot pretend to be negotiating and shooting at the same time. So this is more evident than even before. So that's the hope we have now, that any change has to be coming. We have elections next year. And as I told you before, we are not defending any party or any representative, but as anarchists, we also realize, and we are not blind, that we need a change, a big change on the system. So what Chile people did 2 weeks ago when they voted and they reject any traditional party, left or right parties, and they are opposed and they are asking for a real change. We have this example, and I hope that next year when we go and we vote, we try a different way of government. But the new candidates will have to contemplate to include this police reform as one of the main points of their programs or their proposals. So we will see it next year. But the anti-police feeling is growing up, and many more people now is like asking to themselves, are they really caring of us? What is to care of us? They cannot say that they are defending and protecting the protesters and doing this at the same time. So the double speech is still ongoing, but the evidence that we have, you just need to stop and think and analyze and do your conclusion and make your conclusions.
Oh, I apologize. I think my internet is cutting out. Let me second. There we go. That should be better. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, certainly where I'm at here in Montana, it's been an interesting situation because we have a long history with missing and murdered Indigenous women, and that history of settler colonialism, even though it's a majority white state here, that the Black Lives Matter movement did, I think, kind of give some traction to missing and murdered Indigenous women as an issue that it's hard, you never know what would or wouldn't have happened, but I know that a lot of Indigenous groups have been working to try to raise consciousness about the violence against Indigenous people, against Indigenous women here in Montana. And I feel like from last summer until now, that conversation has shifted in a way that that wasn't happening over the last few years. It's tough because that it's still framed as a law enforcement problem, as a problem with and I think this is somewhat true in Canada as well, from what I've seen, that is framed as a problem of law enforcement ignoring Indigenous people, Indigenous women especially, and of the kind of convoluted law enforcement system where there's federal police and there's state police, and things change depending on whether something happens within a reservation or out of it. So I certainly hope to see more conversation around this that's less focused on the state and more focused, I think, on the root causes, the history of colonialism, the racism, the sexism, the systemic poverty, and and things. So even though, you know, where I'm at, because we have a very, very small Black population, that Black Lives Matter rallies were held here, but it went in a different but equally important direction, I think. Don't know if we have any more questions, but we're kind of winding down. I guess my last question, just to put out on the table, would be what has, I know, like, we've talked about the police, or the state violence, really not just police violence in Colombia, but what has the reaction been in terms of, from the right, from the other side, culturally, I guess, for you, Catalina, and for you, Sonia, that, like, what have you seen in terms of pushback, and how do you feel like that we can address that collectively as anarchists?
About the right methods now? Are you talking about what is the
right?
Right?
Yeah, what are they saying? You know, what are they arguing in the media? And kind of what are they doing, and how do you feel like we have internationally and locally, like, has been addressed, or we could be addressing that in a way to keep people safe?
Well, they have they have a strategy for showing the protesters as vandals. So that's the speech here. They are vandals, they are vandalizing, they are causing damages on the public infrastructures, so they cannot. And the answer of the police is just that, an answer to the vandalic acts. So that's the speech. When you, I never turn on the traditional media channels, but when you go to the supermarket or you take the bus or something and you can listen them, it's the same. And they repeat and repeat and repeat, and many people, they are putting this message on the mind of the people. So, this act of the legal and illegal groups is based on the vandalic acts. So they are defending, and they have to protect us. To protect who is the question? Who are they protecting to? But many other people has realized that this is not justified. The answer that the young people is finding on the street, it has nothing can justify it. So more people is waking up to this situation. They are also promoting a no hate speech, because they say, oh no, we need peace, we need to have a more peaceful speech, you are full of hate, and they are minimizing the situations, telling us, or pretending to tell us that they are peaceful people and we are full of hate people. No, they continue dividing us in two groups. And they will never accept that we have enough motives to be full of hate. And we call it like the rage dignity, la digna rabia, the dignity of the rage. And we have enough motives and reasons to be angry. So we are answering them with art manifestations, with performances, with murals, with music, because they cannot pretend just to show what happens at night, because during the day the manifestations, the marches and everything are very peaceful. And when many people go back to their homes, and just the young people and the first line is on the street, and the anti-riot force and the police are closer than during the day, is when the confrontations and the violence starts. So we are showing the world that we are more the peaceful people that are more impactful, the peaceful protests and manifestations, performances, and as I mentioned before, than these situations. And there are also many infiltrated people that are detonating the violence. So are also identified, for example, 2 nights ago, a civil person shoot a young guy in Cali and killed him, and the community came and captured him, and they killed him. And then they realized that he was from the Fiscalia. He was a institution representative, and the main boss, he said, oh, but he was not working, he was just passing there, so he was just walking around, but he was not in a mission, and we cannot trust. So they are promoting today a white march, that the silence march, the peaceful people march, they are promoting them, but they are very small, and many people is saying, is reacting to them, saying that, what institutions are you defending? What kind of institutions are you defending? So the discussion now is high level, and is horizontal discussion as well, but they don't have the same power than they had before. So it's happening, but they don't have the force that the opposition and the resistance we have.
Thank you. And how about you, Sonia, as far as like the context of the Kill the Bill stuff that's been going on in the UK, or things that have been going on in Spain? What have you been seeing from reactionaries in terms of arguments that they're making or things they're trying to say?
Well, I think that it's interesting what was saying Catalina, because it happened in Spain, for example, that in Madrid there was a right government. So in the working class neighborhoods, the COVID cases were really high. So they try to, because they still having to go to work, they don't have cars, they have to use the public transport. So the difference between rich and poor neighborhoods was really big. So they tried to close it, like if it was a ghetto. So people riot. And what I saw on the television and mass media, what they try to put is like capitalist logic. They try to say that was more important to protect the property, the shops, the street, bins, everything, than people. And I think that is why we need to fight and to change that, because it's just don't make any sense that, for example, young people on the media start to make memes and joke of that, because how could be more important a street bin that one of the girls, for example, lost an eye from a shot? So, and people still defending that, yeah, but rioters are violent. And it's thing that we need to understand that violence is not just going to the street, that is the reaction. So we need to see what happened before, because the wages, the way that neighborhoods, all that, it's full of violence that is made by the state. And I think that it's interesting to consider like feminist logic, because they tell you that there is violence at home, from the state, from the schools. So we need to address that and not just understand that this person is rioting. Well, maybe we should ask why that person is being violent in a riot, and consider that the life of a person, working class person, is more important than a shop or a bin, So what happened in Spain is the mass media started a conversation, and finally it was absurd. And I think that people realize about it, especially young people, was just understand that didn't make any sense what they were saying. Try to get upset and involved just because they fire some bins. No, my empathy goes to the working class girl that have lost an eye, and I think that lots of people feel like that. So that was the situation in Spain.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkably similar, I think, around the world. It's the same thing in the US, that oh well, they know they're looting and they're destroying property, and and then that justifies either the police violence or the police just standing back and doing nothing while reactionaries and fascists are attacking and in some cases murdering people. and I think, you know, there's always a conversation. There's always a tug of war, at least in my experience in my local situation, about tactics and how militant your tactics can be, and whether you're going to lose people's empathy, whether you're going to lose people's willingness to participate in actions and protests if you're not strictly, you know, playing that game of peaceful protest. And so I feel like trying to get people seeing that there's a violence coming from the system and the structures and the state that starts it is one of the things that is very interesting to me. And that definitely links to like you were saying, all of these sources of violence from school, at home, patriarchal violence. So I mean, it is, I mean, if nothing else, I mean, it's really fascinating that it's basically just the same rhetoric from all around the world, that, oh, windows are getting broken. And it's like, well, people are losing their eyes, people are being, you know, hurt, people are being disappeared. So I would love to hear what, in your guys' experience, how you have navigated that kind of tug of war between the people who are maybe not so radical or not looking at the system itself as a source of violence and are like, oh, you have to be completely peaceful, where what they're thinking of peaceful as sort of being passive in the face of state attacks. And how have you had any success in trying to talk to them and kind of bridge that gap and try to get them thinking about things in the bigger picture and in terms of the whole system?
Well, when I spoke with people, I try to tell them to don't be judgmental, you know, try to be in the position in the of the other person, because, for example, in the feminist movement in Spain is not as violent as could be in Chile or in Colombia. So there is a lot of debate around that. And I think that it's important thing to try to understand, like, how urgent is for some people. They need the things to change. So I think that you need to understand that, because some people could wait, could do it in a peaceful way. But for example, if you are living in a violent situation, the same that with the gender violence, you know, we need that to change now. And the person that's been attacked at home need that. It's urgent. So when I try to speak to people, I try to think, put in that position. Okay, if that person is being violent, first try to think all the reasons and what is happening there before than just judging and refuse, you know. So I think that we need to be more empathic and understanding other situations and that emergency. That I think that it's a difficult thing to transmit, you know, because you have your house, you have a job, everything in your life is quiet, so it's difficult to understand how it's for other person, but it is. And I don't think that people is rioting just because, you know, are bored. And also we need to think on the origin of the police, because in Spain, for example, we are living in a monarchy nowadays, and the police started as a private army of the king to protect, like they were protecting the property of the monarchy. So finally, police protect property, and that is the main thing. They are doing their job, and the point is, like, we don't want that job. You know what I mean? That is the main thing. Yeah, of course they are doing that, but we don't want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Catalina? What's been your experience kind of seeing like any kind of a push-pull between people who insist that you know, for these protests and this movement to be considered valid, it has to be completely peaceful, and how people have been trying to change those perceptions?
Yes, there are many people here who consider themselves as non-political people, you know, and we are trying to spread the message that all our actions are political. So when you consider that you are apolitical, you are taking a position. So we are saying that this position can be in a complicity, can become a complicity position as well. So when you think that you don't need to vote, or you can vote use the white vote, you are, at the end of the day, you are electing as well. So this complicity message is very important. Though, what are you sponsoring? What are you defending? What are you supporting with your a political position? And we are also inviting the people to take radical decisions, because this situation doesn't permit like soft and warm positions and reactions. We here need to be radical. Definitely, we cannot wait for the next government or the next politician come. No, you need to be very informed and conscious about your decisions in political terms, but also in your daily actions, because as we act, what do we buy, where do we buy, is also important. If where is our money, in which all the banks are sucks, but there are some worse than others, even here, because some are directly financing the conflict, and others are not so involved. So these kind of daily decisions are very important. And when they ask for more peaceful speech and actions, we show them most of the people who are going out is in peaceful demonstrations. At night, the violence comes, but who is causing this violence? So also, like, these connections and these methodologies needs to be shown and elevate, and the people needs to make their own conclusions, but based in facts, not in what the big media are telling to them. So we are inviting also to follow the independent media, the people who is doing the transmission, and when with the evidence in your eyes, you can conclude.
Thank you. So it looks like we have one last question, and then we're probably going to be out of time. Outside of the anarchist community, who would you consider our closest allies in the effort to abolish police? Are there any particular parties or movements in your communities?
Yes, here is I have seen more the left parties representatives on the streets, talking with the young people, attending the demonstrations and everything. And we had situation this week when the Ministry of War is the Minister of Defense, but here is the Minister of War, and he's not defending anything. And he was called by the Congress for a common discussion and voting. And you could see on the speech of the left and the right parties the big difference. So the right and ultra-right parties are defending the action of the military groups and the police groups, and the right and the left candidate and the left representatives are against it. But they are the minority on the Congress, so they lost, and the Minister of Defense will continue. And it was not he was ratified on his charge, but now we have clear who is who, you know. So that's also a campaign, like promoting and showing who is who. And this will be very useful information for in the next election. So we don't think that they are our allies, and we have to also be careful and don't pretend that they represent us, and to be very, very close, because they also have political interest, you know. So we don't trust on them, but is better to identify who can be more, who can be closer, and who are our allies. but not put all the confidence on them and open all the spaces. And we have to be careful. Okay, you are coming here, but you are not here for doing your own propaganda. If you are here, it's because you want to work with us. You have to stay here. You have to cook with us. You have to do all with us, and not just take the picture and go and post it on your social media, and then you are supporting. No, it's more than the picture. What we need from them.
Thank you so much. This was, we had some people missing at the last minute for this discussion, but I feel like we still had a really good conversation. And I know if you have some links, people can go to, will you be able to post that on the Gata Negra Facebook, Sonia? So
Yeah.
People can find some links to send some mutual aid and support the struggle that's going on in Colombia. We've gone a little bit over time, but I really appreciate that we were able to keep it together and have a really interesting conversation. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much for the space. We really, really appreciate it. It was a big responsibility for me to be here, because this is an important channel for us to talk about what is happening here. But I really give thanks to all of you for listening and for being interested and supporting our fight.
We're really glad to have you. So I think that is everything. And again, people, you can find the links on the Gata Negra Facebook page to support Catalina and her comrades.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Sonia, for the invitation.